Hi, today on Business Spotlight, I'm here with Aaron Mansworth, and he's the managing director of Trigon Hotels. And I'll go over to you, Aaron. What is it you do and for how long?
Kevin, hi, thanks, and good to be here with you today. I suppose managing director of Trigon Hotels constitutes three hotels that we have in Cork: the Metropole, Cork International, and Cork Airport Hotel. But just give a very brief background on how we got to that stage. I started in a family business I grew up in the lovely town of Cove, and when my father was a publican, so I learned about cheap labour early on, and when I worked my childhood there. But great times, and I think it's really stood to me in a lot of the practice, my people skills. Was fortunate then to sort of get into the hotel side of things, and I did a bit of practical training in Spain and in juries in Cork for a while, but then decided I wanted to go down the formal route, and I was lucky enough to be accepted to Shannon College of Hotel Management. I won't say the year I graduated, but it was a few years ago. But I was fortunate to go through the process there. Did a year in Switzerland, and then for my fourth year placement, ended in New York. I was supposed to stay for 12 months, but I stayed almost 8 years. Loved it out there. Moved home. Looked at a couple of opportunities back here and progressed. Funny, people ask me, how did I make the transition from New York to Cavan, of all places? But, you know, as I tell a lot of people, the 3.5 years I had in Cavan was probably one of my biggest learning curves to date, because it put me in my first general manager's position. And I think the key to that is that you have to stand by your decisions. Up until that, you always had a buffer of somebody above you or whatever. So I never knew what a boiler system was, a sewage tank was. So I learned all these things in that role, which was great. Progressed then on. I took a bit of a lateral move there to the Heritage in Killinard, 5-star resort, because I just wanted around the CV a little bit more. As we Corkonians always do, we tend to migrate home. Got home eventually with a Wexford wife in tow. So what I did was we started up in the Cork International Hotel, and that was in about 2009, and I suppose we were in receivership at that time when I got to the hotel. It was just that period. But again, a great business learning from running an operation through receivership in terms of, you have little or no budgets, but you learn what to do with your money, and you spend it very wisely. So the business lesson there, and it stuck with us all the way through. I've retained most of the team from that period. A lot of team from that period are still with us, and it was great. So we were fortunate then to be bought out a couple of years ago by a lovely family. We've grown the group to 3 hotels now, and we're planning for a 4th hotel, and always looking for other opportunities. So in a nutshell, great career. And I would always say to people, hospitality, there's some great career paths available to people.
Fantastic. Listen, that's a fantastic story. And what makes you stand out from your competition?
I would sort of say, in across the group, what we really focus on, Kevin, is our people, our teams. Obviously, people will say, it's the guest experience, and I think one comes with the other. So where we really start and where we really focus, and it's something, and we'll probably touch on COVID later on at some point, but throughout my entire career, I've learned you've got to look after your teams, you've got to look after people and develop them. And I think in Trigon, that's something that we really work hard on. Our employer brand is so important to us. We're about to launch a new one next week, but we've worked really hard. We've designed bespoke trainee management programs, leadership programs. We launched our newest one, which is the Aspire program, in conjunction with the further education training centres. What we've done is we've got a 3-tier leadership program. So the key thing for us is when we bring people into the organization is we want them to show their culture, their personalities, and we want to bring that out because it helps an organization. But we also then want to develop them so that they stay. And I think that's the biggest thing is out there at the moment. A lot of people say they have recruitment issues, but I think what it actually is in a lot of places is you don't have recruitment issues, you have retention issues. You can get people in the door, but can you hold those people? Can you develop those people? So I think that's something that we really want, that we work hard at, because ultimately that then enhances the guest experience, because They're dealing with really highly trained professionals who are passionate about their job, who are happy in their job. That knocks on to the guest experience. And as one of my former GMs in New York said to me, he said your main aim is to make sure that people are leaving your hotel with a smile, wanting to come back. It's that simple, you know.
Fantastic. Couldn't agree with you more. Absolutely. I mean, developing your people, working with them, retaining them there. You know, I know it's a well-worn phrase that you're your biggest asset, but really living it, I think, makes a huge and we find, I mean, if you measure it, fully engaged people who are enjoying work and having fun, which is you know, enjoying what they're doing, can be up to 3 times more productive than somebody who's just clocking a card. You know,
absolutely, couldn't agree more, Kevin.
Yeah, fantastic. So I'm sure you've had a load of learnings, but what is your biggest learning since you've been a business, you know, running a business?
I'd have to say is how long is a piece of string there, but if I had to pick a couple, Kevin, that really stand out for me would be I do think that we've learned a lot out of COVID. It opened up a lot of minds, and I think, you know, looking at people going from fixed mindsets to growth mindsets is massive. And, you know, I think a piece that's come along with that I've always had in my career early on is trust. And you have to trust the people around you. And as part of that, you have to build the correct team around you. Get the people, and like, you know, I'm made to look an awful lot better than I am, Kevin, by great people around me, to be honest, and they all deserve a medal for putting up with me. But it's trusting them, and you know, I think in the last couple of years, the whole sort of development around the area of psychological safety and emotional intelligence, it's so pertinent, and I think we're working hard at that. I think from growing up in a bar, I've always had an element of emotional intelligence, to be honest. But you know, we look at that, because what we have to realize is we're dealing with so many different generations in our workforce, and it's changing all the time. We have to be able to adapt with that as well. I think something that I've worked on in the last while as well that's helped massively is trying to understand the difference between managers and management and leadership and leaders. And it's huge for us, because, you know, there are times when you need managers in your organization, but for me, I try and avoid the use of the word management in our organization. It's leaders and leadership, and then I go back to probably a final point in that space is to look after your team, look after your people, because they are going to be the ones that make you shine and ultimately help you deliver to the bottom line, because all these things are fantastic, but we are here, you know, the vast majority of our roles, we have to deliver to the bottom line. And that, you know, and in order to do that, you've got to have a happy, engaged team. So all these sort of practices. So that's sort of would be what I would pass on at this moment, you know.
Fantastic. Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. Is it Stephen M.R. Covey, I think was a book I read, I thought it was fantastic, was The Speed of Trust.
Yeah,
you know, he's the son of Stephen Covey, and I was just impressed by how that was like almost how they developed a whole philosophy around their training and things like that. And that book was out probably 10 years ago, you know. But
it's absolutely, because like what I find, and you know, and I've seen it come to fruition over the last couple of years, is that stuff that I would have probably been stuck in trying to micromanage, I sort of allow the team to develop. And they're happier in themselves then, because they're not being micromanaged. They learn from their mistakes. And that's the other piece, is that you've got to be careful, because mistakes will happen, and it's how you deal with them. You know, have people learn with them. But no, it's huge. And that's a great book that you just referenced there, actually.
Yeah, it's fantastic on the trust one. And I suppose our system that we have is the 6 keys to a winning team, and you know, it starts off with you know, leadership and understanding where you're going, you know, without going into all of it here now, but that's one that we focus on, certainly on the team side of things, and getting that right, which is fantastic. I think you've touched on this already, but how do you see your business developing over the next 5 years?
Yeah, great question, Kevin, because I suppose, to be honest, there's like, I suppose, speaking for our own industry and our hotels, is it's so diverse in terms of you've got leisure, you've got corporate, we've got now what you call business and leisure, which is pleasure, you've got tour, you've got so many things, and you're trying to look at the patterns, and if you try to be all things to all people, that doesn't work either. But I think if I was to take a couple of commonalities across, would be is definitely I see our sector moving a lot more, looking at technology a bit more, because in the past we were so people centric. And I think the balance here, and what I'm saying in this piece, is we've got to keep the balance of the people piece, but we're also looking at clients who are less people centric, want to get to their bedroom, don't want to meet somebody, they want to be able to check in online, use their phone to check into the room. But then we, on the other side, we have the leisure guest that wants to meet, that wants to have that experience. So I suppose there will be an element of tech, and we can see with like check-in kiosks. And what's funny is I see in most hotels that have check-in kiosks, they still have that person that's there, because nowhere really has quite made the jump in Ireland, from what I see anyway. People, there's still an element of people wanting a bit of both. I do see that customer journey though is changing, from being very people heavy, even from a booking process right through the customer journey. So we've got to evolve with that, but we've also got to be careful with our type of hotel. Like if I say, for argument's sake, the Metropole, 126-year-old building hotel, and people come here for the people experience. I think, they want to walk in, they want to feel that sense of warmth and comfort. They want to be greeted by, a concierge, somebody saying hello. So it's about getting that balance. And then I think also a big change then, and I think everything that I talk about, I always bring it back to your teams, because the skill set needed to manage is very different from when I started in this industry. I feel like a dinosaur, because we've got so many generations coming through, so they need to be managed differently or led differently, but we also have to think differently ourselves. They're going to need a different set of skills than we had growing up. And so I think in that whole space of leadership as well, has to evolve massively. Like I'm just thinking here, if you would ask me a couple of years ago, would I be sitting here talking about psychological safety and emotional intelligence and vulnerability and all that, I would say, after a game, let's just get down and look after the guests on the floor. So it's about, and I don't think it's a bad thing, because our industry probably has a bit of an unfair perception at times, in terms of, well, it's a tough industry to work. It's not. It's a great, rewarding industry, fabulous benefits, fabulous career paths, fabulous opportunities for the right people, exceptional opportunities for the right people. So I think that we do need to evolve and sort of nurture and develop our teams more, but us as well, the existing leaders, also need to change and look at how we develop and evolve as well. So it's very exciting, to be honest.
Fantastic. Yeah, that's fantastic. I mean, it does. I mean, definitely. And so I think you touched on this, but what would you see? What is the latest news about your business?
I suppose, yeah, I've probably gone through a good bit there, but what I would say as well is that something our industry is ripe for at this moment as well is to further develop our, the whole area of sustainability. Because when I look at, like, sustainability is a large topic. It's not just what I think sometimes people just pigeonhole it into one or two small things, but it's such a broad topic. But I'm looking at there at the moment is that we've got corporate guests that now insist on knowing what our carbon footprint is, and knowing what we're doing to bring down our carbon footprint as an organization before they can stay in the hotel and things like that. So, but I think hotels are ripe to sort of retrospectively, retrofit hotels. Unfortunately, like if I take the Metropole, 126-year-old building, to sort of make that more sustainable and more carbon neutral. It's a challenge. So I think that's where, there are grants, there are supports out there. And I think in this space, you're going to see an awful lot more happen. And it's something that hotels are working on. Some great hotels around the country, old hotels that have retrofitted now are completely run off solar panels and stuff like that. So there's a lot going on in that space. And I think that's going to be, to the fore in the next couple of years as well,
Fantastic, fantastic. Absolutely. I know I put solar panels on my house during the summer, and you can see it making a dent at least in the electricity bill. But I think I've a way to go. Yeah. Um. So what are the biggest issues you've overcome, or what are the biggest challenges you've had in the business going forward? I'm sure there've been many, but did anyone stick out?
I would, yeah, well, I suppose, and I hate bringing the word back up, but I think whether you look at it as a challenge, was COVID, particularly in our industry. We were wiped.
Okay.
Our industry, we went to absolute zero. While a lot of industries were able to keep tipping away, we were wiped overnight. And for we've had, it was funny, it was at this week 3 years ago, that the announcement was made. So what I think about is, and we're still not fully back to the business levels where we're at pre-COVID. So we've had a very, very interesting 3 years. And I when I say interesting is, I sort of look back on a COVID and I sort of say, right, what were our learnings? What do we have to take out of it? And and these are almost cliches at this point now, but when you look at resilience, motivation, innovation, communication, and empathy, and when I look at how we used all of those and put them into practice over COVID was phenomenal. I was talking to somebody earlier in the day, and I was sort of saying is that she hadn't been in the hotel for a while, and she said to me, "Oh, you got a new florist in the lobby, and off the lobby and stuff like that." And I said, "Would you believe that happened during COVID?" Because I think we had to look at ourselves, our teams, our people, but also our physical space. And when we couldn't use the interior of the hotel, we got very creative with using the exterior. We found terraces that we never knew existed. We found streets that we could use. We found space. So, and I think that's the piece that, if I could say I want to retain most from COVID, was that innovation piece, always thinking differently. How can we generate new revenue streams? The resilience piece, or as another, I heard somebody call that anti-fragility rather than resilience. So I thought,
I've heard of that. Yeah.
People were so sick of the word resilience, and pivot were other ones. But I think the one thing was around the people, the empathy, because I found during that period, even the senior leadership team that I deal with directly day in, day out, we all had our peaks and troughs. We all had our moments of ups, downs, and we got through it together. And it brought us through, made us stronger people, stronger teams. So I think, to be honest, I think I look back in COVID, I won't say fondly, but I would sort of say it taught us so much. We learned so much. We developed so much. So, and I think during that period, the biggest challenge it did a lot of damage to our people aspect, because a lot of people left the industry and left a massive skills gap. And that's the piece now that we're suffering on. Having said that, I think we're starting to see some sort of blue skies, green shoots coming through a bit more and more. But it's been a hard couple of years from the talent front, but it's getting better,
Okay, fantastic. Well done on all of that. And what's most inspiring to you today? I mean, that's a bit a broad question, I know, but does anything stick out as being inspiring to you?
Yeah, and again, I go back to, I know I'm talking about people and our teams. For me, Kevin, there's no greater satisfaction, buzz, to see somebody grow and develop with you in your organization. And we're very fortunate to see a lot of that. I've seen people go from being kitchen porters to being head chefs. I've seen it's just to see that growth and that journey that people go on and that stick with it. And that's the piece that, and if I was to give people advice, is aim for something and stick with it. You will have tough times, you will. But I think the challenge is that when people fall at the first hurdle, sometimes they're setting themselves back. The other piece I'd say on that journey is have good mentors. Yeah. Get your mentors, get people that you can trust, that you can talk to, that will give you honest, sound advice. Because sometimes you need to hear, get over it, get a kick up the arse and get back in the saddle, versus other times where you need you know, you need that TLC, or you need somebody to be honest with you. So I think from that point of view, I suppose I have to say as well at this point, you know, you've got to look at, you know, seeing happy customers leave, coming back with that smile, like I mentioned previously. You know, sometimes we've seen people give us their life savings to give them an occasion to remember for the rest of their lives, you know, and that's what we have to remember. And when we deliver that, and which we do, you know, there's a great buzz, and it's down to two things. It's down to where your people and your customers, you know, are looked after well together, you know. So that's for me, that's the greatest buzz when you see that happen.
Fantastic, fantastic. And I say, at the moment, what do you see are the biggest challenges facing your business?
I suppose a couple of things here, Kevin, is that you've got the cost of doing business, which I think every household feels the pinch at the moment in terms of, you know, increased energy costs. And to be fair to the government, and I must say, even during COVID, the government, you know, really worked really hard with us as an industry to help and support. And I thought they did an amazing job, like they're trying to do with the energy grants now for households. We are seeing it, you know, the cost of doing business. Like we've seen linen increase by 40%.
Wow.
We've seen energy costs, even though we're working on the sustainability aspect. We've seen our consumption down by 30%, but yet our bills are up by 140%.
Ouch.
So you put food can be anywhere from 25 to 30% up. That's a big challenge. I mentioned the talent gap. You know, we're looking at that, you know, as an industry, and that's where we have to pull together, work with some of the state agencies like Fáilte Ireland, and to sort of, how can we make our industry more attractive? Because it's very good, and I think that half the problem is the perception from the outside looking in, not knowing. But our industry has evolved massively. Gone are the days of split shifts, 60-hour work weeks, all that sort of, you know, practice that happened in the past. That is in the past. So we've a lot of good practice, pay conditions, pensions, healthcare. But I think something that we also is a challenge, and it's not just for our sector, is staff accommodation. You know, accommodation is very, very short on the ground, you know, and it's stopping people from coming to, whether it's Cork, whether it's Ireland or whatever. It's across the board. But I think that's something that we need to try and resolve sooner rather than later as well, you know.
Absolutely. I mean, that's across the board. I know I've got clients who are actually investing in houses to house their staff.
And that's what we've done ourselves, but we just probably can't keep up with the level of it, because we found people just can't get accommodation. So we've had to go out and take a couple of houses ourselves to try and help with it. We've put team members up in the hotels for periods to try and help them out till they can get on their feet and stuff like that. So, but you know, that they're only all very short stopgap fillers. You know, got to look at and fix the bigger picture, you know.
Well, hopefully the government will finally get their act together on that one. I mean, it's a huge challenge. We've got a growing population, of course, etc. You know, but it's across the board. Every industry I speak with, it's one of the challenges.
Yeah, huge.
And I suppose just to finish up, Aaron, what are the biggest opportunities for our industry over the next 5 years, do you think?
I suppose the key, Kevin, is to get back to sort of pre-COVID levels of business. You know, some would be, again, depending on your business mix. Like we would see, like corporate travel. If you think about it, corporate travel is way down. You know, corporates, just like what we're seeing is that they're traveling a lot less. They might stay a little bit longer, but they're not coming 4 or 5 times a year. But a lot of that now will also tie into the sustainability and carbon footprints of companies. So there's a few interlinked things here. So I think for us is we've got to keep looking, and we're very fortunate in Cork. If I make this a bit local for the moment, is that you know, we're very lucky to have an organisation called Visit Cork in Cork that tries the Pure Cork brand, you know, to drive Cork as a tourism destination. So I think, you know, for us, it's working and collaborating with organisations like Pure Cork, Tourism Ireland, Fáilte Ireland, the attractions in Cork, to sort of say, how do we keep encouraging people to come here? I think some of the green shoots, again, the American market is quite strong coming into Ireland.
Right.
But there would be concerns around the UK market on the back of Brexit and other things. Sentiment out there as the UK market is coming down. But, you know, we look at the likes of, I suppose, our accessibility into Cork and Cork Airport, which you can really see is ramping up. They're announcing record months every month now, going, you know, so there's a lot of positivity, but I think it's for us as a region to work really hard together to keep that momentum going and put Cork at the, well, I think we all know it's at the center of the universe anyway. We just need to get that, I think we just need to get that message out to everybody. But really, like, when we look at our offering in Cork, we're spoiled. We have the city offering, we have the county offering, we have maritime, we have farm, you know, we're spoiled. So how can we really push that? And I just think is the opportunities for us as well is to continue to working with our people and developing our people, you know, so that they're in careers that they really see hospitality as a long-term career, and they say once they're in there for life. That's what we want. You know, we're looking at lifers, and we've a bit of work to do that in that space over the next couple of years, you know.
Fantastic. Listen, Aaron, it's fantastic been speaking to you today. You know, very enlightening. I've certainly learned a few bits from what you've been talking about there, and I love your emphasis on your people and on trust and on developing people. I think it's absolutely brilliant.
Great, thanks, Kevin. I'm delighted to be here today again. Thank you.